I'm here to talk a little bit about my priorities as council member, but also maybe some ways we can get more youth involved in civics and in voting. So let me just say a little more about myself. I guess I'll quickly go back pretty far. My grandparents on both sides, my mother's side of the family, they were farmers from Sweden and became teachers. So I come from a family of farmers and then teachers on my mother's side. My father's side immigrated here. My grandparents both immigrated here from Japan, actually immigrated to the Los Angeles area. And my grandfather was a small business person, and along with my father and his brother, they were interned during World War II in Poston, Arizona. And that really had a huge impact on my father, who was 10 when that happened. He later became an Asian American studies teacher at UC Davis and really worked with the communities, the Asian American communities in that area to try to make sure that there was social justice. So my parents, this is a funny thing, I think, is that, and helps to explain who I am to some extent. My parents first met at UCLA. My father was in the first interracial fraternity in the country, and they did not have a sorority who would do any events with them. My mother was in a women's multi-ethnic co-op, and so they were the ones that did functions with the interracial fraternity, and that's how my parents met. And so I wanted to say a little more about, kind of why I got into politics. I think my background's in early childhood education. I have a master's from Mills College in Oakland, but I really focused on policy development, even at that level. I worked on a grassroots campaign called the Worthy Wage Campaign, and it was worthy wages for childcare. And it was about raising the wages for people who work with young children in order to raise the quality for children. And it was really a women's rights issue and a workers' rights issue and a children's issue, all of those things. And so that's where I kind of got a lot of my excitement, enthusiasm for these issues. After several years of this grassroots campaign, we didn't necessarily get amazing pay. You probably know that childcare workers are still underpaid. But when we started the campaign in the mid-90s or so, nobody in the childcare field would even talk about wages or about what people made. They thought it was not polite, not something women did, not something nice people did. So over the course of working on the campaign, we were able to really change the field and get people to talk about not only how poverty wages affected them personally, but how it affected their ability to do the job and to really nurture, care for, and teach young children. So that was probably the biggest step there. Ruth mentioned that I was involved in the Women's March. I was lucky enough to be able to go to DC with the very first Women's March with the 100 people from Hawaii who went as a contingent. So that was an amazing experience. And when I came back, they're like, well, now you're gonna be the coordinator for Hawaii Island. So for the next 4 years, I was the coordinator for Hawaii Island, and I helped with working with the community to put on the annual events and try to be out. We really tried to be out with other organizations supporting them whenever we could in the community. We weren't necessarily there to make a name for ourselves, but we wanted to support other groups that were doing good work. And then one other thing I did that I think you might be interested in before I became council person was I worked with our state Democratic Party on a campaign to flip Georgia blue. It's when the 2 Senate seats were up, and we felt like we needed to weigh in and help Georgia in any way we could. So I worked with the Democratic Party to get tens of thousands of postcards sent to Georgia from individuals handwritten in Hawaii, asking them to please, get out and vote. That was our main message, was please get out and vote. So anyway, those things led me to run for office, as well as just I worked for Heather Kimball, who's a council member. She's council chair now for Hamakua. I worked for her for 2 years and really enjoyed the work and saw what good could be done at the county council level. And then when the council person in my district where I lived was terming out, I had an opportunity to run for, and very excited to be here. So sorry, that was a little much on my background, but I thought it might help you understand who I am and why I'm doing the things I'm doing. So this is my first year. I haven't even been in office for 1 year, but I'll just tell you, it was kind of a slow start. I'm trying to feel out everything, learn everything new, do some small things. I did some things cleaning up the code and little things. I also had a few things left over from my predecessor that I needed to deal with and take care of. So I did do that as well. And then we went into budget process. That was my first time doing that. I was able to make a couple amendments that I'm pretty proud of at the end there, which was just raising the rates for our summer fun staff. The Parks and Rec people told me they were really having a hard time recruiting. And so I was able to get into the budget to raise the pay for the summer fun and winter fun staff. Also able to double the spay and neuter budget for animal control, so that we can get out there and help people who maybe can't afford or just aren't understanding why spay and neuter is important, but get more people to spay and neuter their pets. So I was excited to get those in. Now I'm in the point where I'm starting to dig into meatier issues, and I think that's some of what I want to talk about today, is just kind of where my priorities are. I have a few priorities that I talked to people about when I was out campaigning, knocking on doors, talking to lots of people, that I formed over that 1 year time, talking to people and having those discussions and looking into things. And then at least one that's really come to me as I've been in office more. So one of the things I talked to people about a bunch is Hilo Bay and how it's pretty polluted, not really used to its potential. So I've been able to work with our research and development team. They really took the lead and were able to apply for a grant. We're waiting and crossing our fingers that we get this grant that would help us do a full-on plan for the entire Hilo watershed. So that's going all the way up the mountain, all the water that comes down and what's happening on that watershed and how it gets to the bay and how it influences the water quality in the bay. And so that I'm super excited about, because that will be very community-based. We hope to involve, all the organizations on the ground that are doing the work already around the watershed, and working with Hilo and other experts, as well as our newly formed OSCER, which is Office, let me see if I can get this right. I would just call it OSCER so I can never remember. Office of Sustainability, Climate, Equity, Resilience. Thank you. I've been calling it OSCER for so long, I forget what it stands for, but yes, that's our new, it's going to be up and running soon, I hope. But that's, I hope that this Hilo Bay project, if we get it funding, it'll be like their first project that's within OSCER. So that's one. Downtown Hilo. I know that many of you have frequented downtown Hilo. We have a lot of issues in downtown Hilo. I think it's a gorgeous, beautiful downtown, old town. The feeling of it is really important to keep the feeling of our downtown Hilo. But we also have some issues that are making it less pleasant to visit and harder to spend money and keep our businesses afloat. So I've been working with the Downtown Improvement Association, newly reformed, to try to see what we can do to work together with the businesses and also just the general public on figuring out ways we can improve things. So that is a big deal. Of course, one of the major issues, which is an issue for our entire island and state and the country, is helping people who don't have homes, who are living on the streets. So that is a very important issue to me. We've got short-term ideas that we're working on, you know, in the 1 to 2 year kind of realm, as well as longer term solutions that we're looking at. But this was the very first year where the $9 million from the county went out to social service organizations specifically to deal with homeless issues. That went out in, say, like May of this year. So it's just been out there for a couple months, and things are just starting to happen as far as support services that we can to help people who are struggling. So that is, we're supposed to be putting that out every year for the next 5 years or the next 4 years. So it's a 5-year plan. And I'm really hopeful that along with finding some real solutions on, you know, housing and places for people to live, and building some community, will make a difference there, but it's not going to be a quick solution. So, like I said, we're also looking at some shorter term solutions. One thing that I talked about a lot when I was going door to door is making sure that the Hilo community really feels like they know what's going on, they're connected, and that they have some say in what's going on at the county level government. One of the things I learned a couple of years ago that I was very frustrated with is that Hilo is the only district on the entire island that doesn't have a community development plant group, where all the other groups on the island have these. Hilo does not. I've been told it's because Hilo's already developed. You don't need a group that has input on what's happening in Hilo. But I've found that lacking. And so that's been a big issue for me. I'm talking with some other folks about really delving into how those community action groups are really working and what we can do to support, to make sure that people really do feel like they are having some say. Because some of the groups around the island are functioning at a high level, and some at a medium level, and some not too well, and then we don't have one at all. So we need to look at it as a whole, and I hope that we can work together to figure out something that gets more people feeling like their voices are involved in the processes. So that's something that I'm working on. A new thing that I can mention, I think, but not talk too much about because it's still in the works. I'm looking at kind of a long-term rental bill, so maybe potentially a carrot and stick to help people rent to people long-term. So I know there's other people on the council that are working on short-term vacation rental stuff, but what I'm looking at is how can we incentivize people to rent long-term to people if they have a home that's either vacant or underutilized, or maybe it's being used for short-term vacation rental now, but maybe they would go into long-term rental if they had more supports and some incentives. So that's something I'm working on with Council Member Galimba from down in Kau, and I'm excited about that, but can't say too much more about that at this point. So those are some of my priorities, and I'm sure you'll have some questions about, you know, what other things I'm working on or anything like that. But I do want to talk about engaging youth. This is a very exciting and important topic for me. I'm very lucky to have been we have a new youth commission that you probably voted on in the last time that was up for a vote. And we do have that. It's going to start, I think, in October probably, but I've been appointed as the council person that's going to be the liaison for the council and to support the youth commission. So I'm really excited about that. I'm working with the mayor's office and our court council right now to plan a commission training day for all the new commissioners, and super excited because these are 14 to 24-year-olds from around our island who will be on a commission that will have some say in what gets done, and they will have the ear of both the mayor and the council as far as bringing issues that are really important to the youth to our attention and working on solutions with us. So I'm super excited about that. I already have my person that I've appointed, but she'll be on for 2 years, and then I will get to appoint another person. I was letting these young people know who aren't quite 14, but by the time I need someone new for Hilo, maybe one of them will step up. Also, the mayor gets, I think, 6 appointees to that commission. So that's also happening. Additionally, going to be supporting Chair Kimball's working on a youth congress to really get more youth from around the island involved. I think we're going to be going to all the high schools, all the public high schools around the island, and seeing, trying to get a handful from each high school involved in a youth congress. The idea is that they will come together and kind of do a mock kind of UN type thing, and then they might even be really involved in a sustainability conference that we're looking at down the road. So excited to help with that. I'm going to be helping to reach out to the high schools on behalf of the council and the county to really make those connections. Oh, the other thing, I think, so I'm on the education caucus for the Democratic Party of Hawaii, and in that caucus, one thing we've talked about several years in a row, and we're talking about it again, is can we think about statewide legislation that will really put more civics education into our high schools, at the Hawaii DOE level. So it's something that we are trying to figure out how to formulate that, but it's something that a lot of people who are on the education in the education caucus feel really strongly about, including me. We have, I don't know if you're aware, but we have something called PID, and it's participation in democracy, which is a required class for your junior year, a semester class in your junior year. And that's something that I think there could be revamped or re-energized or something in that class to do a little more around civics education. When our dear friend and your colleague Rosemary last year approached me about possibly going into some of these PID classes to pre-register the juniors at the high schools to vote, we tried to make that work. It was a little last minute, but that's something I do think that the league could do more of, and we could try to, I'm happy to help try to make those connections. But I think if the league, could go into lots of those classes and pre-register, 30 students, 25 students to vote every year or every semester, that would be truly amazing. So I know my children were both pre-registered to vote. In fact, my child, who just turned 18 a couple of days ago, but when she was 17, was getting jury notices. And I was like, wait, what's happening? How can you be getting a jury notice? Like, I guess it was for after they turned 18, but they had their information already because they had been pre-registered to vote. So anyway, I really think that there's a great possibility there of working with the PID classes, and maybe if our students and teachers can help us figure out how to do that, I'm always open to helping. So as far as what League of Women Voters could do, I mean, you're doing a lot already. You're you're doing the voter guides, which I think are super important in the Vote 411, as well as your voter drives, which you talked about today, doing some of those. I think if you could do more ways, like actions of some sort, where you could pull more people in potentially. I know you tried to go out and maybe have a table for voting at different events, but I don't know if there are some actions or things where you might pull more people to get involved. That could be one thing. Focusing on just 1 or 2 issues a year, or, you know, having just like this year, we're going to focus on this and really getting that out there. I think, or having, you know, basically a driving theme or something, I think that would be helpful. And then, as I said, really thinking about pre-registering our youth to vote in other ways. The PID classes is one way, but I'm sure there are lots of other ways that we could, you know, ask some students about and talk to some teachers about and talk to some parents about. I would love to see that happen. So those are just a few of the thoughts I had today, this morning. I would love to hear more from you and have some back and forth. So if anybody has any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Jen? Try again.
Thank you, Jen. We'll try and go maybe one from the room and then one online, so we'll be able to give everyone a chance. How about Nina? Should I ask the first question loudly?
I'll repeat it.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Hello.
Oh, you got it.
Thank you very much for your for coming today, and also for sharing your initiatives and your achievements and your accomplishments with us. We're very honored to have you, and I found your remarks very interesting from the standpoint that one of League's primary objectives is the promotion and defense of democracy. And what you discussed with respect to going door to door and people saying, well, we want to get involved, or we don't know what we don't know, struck a chord with us, because one of our, at the national and also at the local level, we are very focused on transparency in government. And when the transparency infrastructure is not there, or it's dysfunctional, or people don't know what they don't know, then our democracy is not functioning in an optimal way. So what you discussed about the community development plans and the various tiers of involvement of communities is very important. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, having heard your constituents talk about access to information or access to participation in government, what do you see right now at the county level, or what have you heard from your constituents, aside from the community development plans? What are the barriers to sunshine in government, for example, and transparency? Do you have any particular priorities or viewpoints, or are you coming across certain challenges in transparency in government issues? Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nina. Great question. So a couple things. One thing, actually the very first focus of my office when I got into office was to start opening communication channels with the public, because I really felt, as a constituent, I didn't necessarily know how to get the information or interact with the county council previously. So I do have a weekly e-newsletter that I put out that's free if you just want to sign up. Every Friday we send it out, and it usually has, you know, potentially events like this one on there, but also when it's the week before county council, I put what you know, how you can access county council meetings and committee meetings, but also try to highlight anything I think might be of interest for this particular community. And then the week after, I try to highlight any discussions that we had at county council that might really be of interest to the Hilo community. So that's just one example of something that we've committed to doing and try to do every single week. I left some cards on the table back there. And if anybody is interested in signing up, all you need to do is either call or email my office. So we'd be very happy to just put you on the email list. And to make sure that you get that information every week. Our office is also always happy to take calls or emails about issues that you see. This is how we know what's going on in the community. People often apologize when they call or email, sorry to bother you, this and that. It's not a bother at all. I really need people to call and to email me because I need to know. I don't know what's going on in every single neighborhood in the district. So it's very important that you call when there's an issue or something going on that you want to make sure people know about. It's really important that you call the office and let us know. And sometimes we can help you quickly. Sometimes it's a thornier issue. And even if we end up not being able to do exactly what you had hoped, at least we have that communication and we know about the issue so that when something comes up a little later and we're like, oh yeah, that has been an issue in my community, I can speak to it and we can work maybe on a bigger council-wide, island-wide way to look at some of the issues. But if I don't know it's an issue in my district, because I haven't heard from you, then it makes it harder. So please do never feel like you're bothering if you want to call or let me know about something, okay? Sunshine law, yeah, and sunshine. I think the county does a pretty good job at, making sure that we follow all the sunshine laws. They can frankly be cumbersome at times, and sometimes when you want to collaborate more on things, it can make it challenging. But I think overall, it's super important that it's done. I particularly am very frustrated when I try to deal with the state level and they don't have sunshine law at a state legislation. To know what's going on and to not feel like, most of the agreements and deals are being made out of the public's eye. So I think if the League of Women Voters can continue to try to push at the state level for the legislature to become, more adherent to at least some of the sunshine rules, I think that would be great. Frankly, if the state operate under sunshine law, maybe a couple things could be tweaked that make it really difficult for us to operate that they don't care about because they don't operate under it. And Eileen is laughing because she's operated under sunshine for many years and understands both the, I think the really important positives, but also the few of the challenges. Did I answer all your questions, Nina?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Councilmember, we're getting questions online. You're going viral here.
Okay.
Okay. So question from Noel Morin is rezoning of parcels in Hilo is an opportunity to enable higher density housing within our district. Is this being considered as a solution for the housing challenge?
In one word, yes. Exactly how that's going to roll out, I'm not really sure. I have discussed it briefly with the planning director. It is being looked at on that level, but it's also something that I'm interested in, especially trying to get away from single family zoning to at least allow us to do, Ohana units and multifamily zoning on our properties whenever without a lot of jumping through a lot of hoops or worrying about changing zoning. So it's something I'm very interested in. I've been pretty involved. I'm on the housing coalition with Vibrant Hawaii, and there's a couple potential developments going in my district in the near future for workforce housing and just regular developments. I'm excited about them. I know there will be pushback from the neighborhoods, saying, we need this housing and we understand, but we don't want it in our neighborhood kind of thing. And I think it's really important that we hear that and understand the concerns. At the same time, we have to figure out ways to do housing that makes sense. And frankly, housing in Hilo, in the district, that can be connected to our sewers and doesn't take our precious ag land is the most efficient way to do housing. We don't necessarily want sprawling suburbs that are taking our precious ag land and not being hooked up to our sewer systems and creating more issues with our wastewater. So definitely looking forward to working more in that direction.
Thank you. Another question? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing. I'm particularly excited about the Hilo Bay plan. I have two questions and they're related to things that you touched on. One with the Downtown Improvement Association. We've seen a proliferation of graffiti in Hilo, and I don't know if there's a plan to address that. And number two is recently there was an animal control program that was started. I don't know if you can talk more about that. You talked about spay and neuter, but some of the other things that are going on with that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Yes, so I don't know if you're aware, but my predecessor had put in a bill to try to get a business improvement district for downtown Hilo. The business owners and property owners came out very strongly against that because it involved a levied assessment to their properties and they didn't want to pay it. So they really came out strongly and said, we don't want to do this, but we're going to revitalize the Downtown Improvement Association. And that's going to be our way of trying to deal with some of the issues downtown. Now, the Downtown Improvement Association doesn't have a specific relationship with the county as the Business Improvement District would have, where county officials would have had to, support it and be present and participate with that. That is not the DIA, the Downtown Improvement Association is kind of its own little thing. I'm trying to be involved with it and help where I can, but they have taken the onus upon themselves to try to deal with some of the issues like graffiti and things like that. I'm working with them on some things around parking and those kind of things, but yeah, they've kind of, because they didn't go with the BID way, they've taken that on as it's not so much a county issue because most of those are private buildings, if that makes sense. As far as animal control goes, yes, I just want to say in our office we have a very serious and somber awakening to something we already knew was an issue. So we have a personal reason why we're extremely invested in the animal control becoming a high functioning department that really works for our county. So I will be working both with doing what I can there as a council person, but also trying to stay connected with, there's a community group that's working on animal control issues, that's trying to get more people involved and give input to the county on animal control issues. So without going into too much more detail, I have a special connection and I'm working on a couple things that the new administrator is going to start September 1st. And they're working on staffing, still trying to get people. The county council has funded all the positions they've asked for. They just need to be able to fill those positions, train those people and start doing the work. So we're in a bit of a transition period right now. Hopefully we get that up and running very soon. I hope I answered your questions.
We have one last question.
Yes, well, one of them actually overlaps with the last question from Charles Roberts. Right downtown, young people cannot vote. However, some youths vote by graffiti. Any vacant stores immediately tagged? Is there anyone doing or organizing graffiti abatement? I don't know if you want to talk more about that.
Just I believe the DIA is looking at that and figuring out how to do that.
Okay, then the final question is, HoleRoadForSale.com has 3-acre parcels for sale in this zoning, likely for single-family homes. Is that sustainable development model? This is from Ronald Riley. Can it be changed by rezoning? I'm not familiar with that. Are you?
Yeah, I'm not actually, Ron, thanks for the question. Feel free to call my office if you want to talk more in detail. I'm not super familiar. What road did you say?
There's a website.
Oh,
It's
okay.
listed as a website.
Okay,
It
I'm
doesn't
sorry,
say
Ron.
Specific
Right.
spot.
I can't see the website and I can't, but I'd be happy to talk to you more about that. I'm not really sure, what, the background is there or anything. I'm sorry.
Thanks,
So
Jen.
please reach out.
It was Akulea Road.
Akalea, okay, got it. Okay, yes, Akalea. Yeah, the zoning for Akalea has been in place for a bit. I want to see us going forward, not doing that so much. There's no reason that we can't get rid of single family zoning. Other places have done it. You just make everything multifamily and you allow, multifamily dwellings. I'd say the main reason that I have a caveat for that is I think it should only be done in places that can connect to sewer because we have such a wastewater issue on this island. So I'm not talking about some of the developments that are off grid and don't connect to sewer or houses on ag land necessarily. What I'm talking about is places that are within areas that can connect to our sewer. I feel like that those we could look at no longer having single family zoning.
Hi. Is it a short question? Okay. Let me just run over. So we'll have one last question.
Aloha. This is just to kind of update. There has been a Hilo community plan since 1975, so over almost 50 years. The last was the Envision 2025. And also Hilo Bay Watershed Advisory was no longer active when there was no large landowner backing, like Three Mountain Alliance, 3 different watersheds that did have backing. So we do have a lot of data still. I mean, I was active, I got involved in Mokupāpapa because of that, but we do have a lot of base information. And UH has done a lot of work on the watershed as itself and also in the water quality. So it's not an unknown capacity, it's very known. And we do have a lot of base work that was never funded.
Yes, great, yeah. No,
After
we
the 310.
Yeah, we realize that, and that's why, like I said, it's gonna be a community-led. If we get this funding, almost all that funding is just gonna go to working with the community and the community organizations that have the knowledge and the information already, so that we can get everybody in a room and start working on the plan going forward to how to manage the watershed. So thank you. And my vision is that then funding that flows will go to those organizations that are already doing the work to see the plan into fruition. So that's the hope and that's the plan right at this point. But we just hope to get this funding from it's a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant that we applied for. And I think we should find out maybe within a month or so. So thank you for that. And thank you, for your organization for all the work you've done.
No, it's gone.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's no longer in existence.
Well, thank you so much.
And that's the end.
Okay.
Because we did not have funding.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what we don't want to happen here again.
Thank you so much, Jen. Can we give her a hand?